I was hosting a job interview over Zoom when my mother-in-law bursted into my office, looked dead into the camera, and said, "Don't hire her. She can't even keep a marriage together without me." The recruiter froze. I slammed the laptop shut in shock. My husband said, "She was just kidding." But when I checked the interview recording, I saw she'd been pacing outside my office all morning, listening. I sent that clip to HR with a statement. The recruiter called back. "We believe you. And by the way, we just approved your offer." I'm not sure where to start, but I guess the day everything fell apart is as good as any. This happened last fall in Madison, Wisconsin. I was 34, married to a man named Craig, and living with his mother, Margaret. She had moved in with us about 6 months earlier after a hip surgery. It was supposed to be a 3-week stay. She never left. At first, I tried. I really did. I took care of her. I made her tea. I gave up my office so she could have the guest room on the first floor. She still called me cold, selfish, said I didn't know how to be a wife. I don't know if she ever liked me. From the day we got married, she had something to say about everything I did. My clothes, my job, how often I cleaned, how often we saw her. Craig would sigh and say, "Just let her talk." He never stepped in. When I quit my old job, I thought things would get better. That job had drained the life out of me. Long hours, a toxic boss, no time to breathe. I needed a change. Craig said, "Take your time." Margaret said, "Why would they let you go if you were really that good?" Still, I focused. I started looking for something better. I wanted a remote job, so I could have some peace, some space. I had an interview lined up with a firm out of Chicago. It was a marketing director role. I'd be managing a small team, doing strategy, the kind of work I actually loved. The first round went great. The recruiter, Taylor, liked me. The hiring manager, Priya, liked me. I felt hope again for the first time in months. The second round was a panel interview, 3 senior staff plus Taylor. It was over Zoom. I spent 2 days getting ready. I printed out notes, practiced answers, even picked out a clean background. I told Craig and Margaret 5 times not to disturb me. I put a big sign on the door that said, "Interview in progress. Please do not enter." The interview started at 10 a.m. sharp. I felt good, confident. About 20 minutes in, they gave me a case study. I was explaining my approach when the office door creaked open. I froze. Margaret walked in, slowly, wearing her robe and slippers. She stepped right into the camera frame and said, with the most bitter tone I've ever heard in my life, "Don't hire her. She can't even keep a marriage together without me." No one said a word. The recruiter blinked. One of the panelists looked like she was about to ask if it was a joke. I slammed the laptop shut. Craig came running in a minute later, asking what happened. I pointed at his mother, speechless. She just stood there, arms crossed, like she was proud of what she'd done. "She was just kidding," Craig said. "Jesus, you're always so dramatic." I locked myself in the bedroom and didn't say another word that day. That night, when I had calmed down enough to think, I remembered that Taylor had asked to record the interview for internal review. I'd agreed. So I opened up the laptop and watched the recording. That's when I saw it. You could see her shadow pacing outside my office. From the second I logged on, Margaret was outside that door, waiting, listening, watching through the little gap between the door and the hallway. She knew what she was doing. She waited until I was deep into my presentation. And then she struck. It wasn't a joke. It was planned, calculated, and I'd had enough. I trimmed the clip right where she walked into frame and said her little speech. I added a statement. How I told everyone not to interrupt, how this was sabotage by someone who wanted me to fail. I kept it professional, but firm. I sent it to Taylor with a short note. I apologize for what happened during the interview. Please know that this was completely out of my control and not reflective of how I handle myself professionally. Thank you for your time. The next morning, Taylor called. She said, "We believe you. We understand. And honestly, we were impressed by how calm you stayed. You've got the job." She sounded sincere. She sounded like she actually meant it. I didn't even smile. I just said thank you and hung up. I was tired of smiling for people who didn't care about me. Craig was happy though. He thought everything was fixed now. But it wasn't.
Because something in me had changed.
Margaret had crossed a line. And Craig had let her. She tried to destroy something I had worked hard for, something that had nothing to do with her, and he just stood there. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to argue. I was going to show them exactly who they were dealing with. I started the new job 2 weeks later. It was everything I wanted. Structured, respectful, remote. My team was smart, supportive, and didn't care where I lived or what was happening in my personal life, as long as I got the work done. And I did. I poured myself into it. Long hours, tight deadlines, I didn't care. For once, I felt useful again.
Seen.
But the house? It got worse. Margaret barely looked at me anymore. When she did, it was with that smug little smile. Like she still believed she won. Like she thought she was the reason I got lucky with the offer. Craig kept acting like everything was normal. He came home from work, made himself a drink, and plopped down on the couch like nothing had changed. Like I hadn't been humiliated in front of a panel of strangers. Like his mother hadn't tried to wreck my career. One night, about a month in, I came out of my office late, around 9:30 p.m., to grab a snack. I heard them in the kitchen. Margaret said, "She's too full of herself now. Look how she struts around. Like she's better than us." Craig just laughed. "Let her have her little power trip. It won't last." My hand shook around the doorknob. They hadn't heard me. I went back into the office and quietly locked the door. The next day, I started looking at apartments. I didn't say anything yet. I just saved a few listings, messaged a couple landlords, started a folder. Then I did something else. Something I had put off for years. I opened a separate bank account. I didn't plan on using it right away. But I needed something that was mine. I'd let Margaret into our lives, into my home, and she'd taken every inch I gave her and spit on it. Craig didn't protect me. He didn't care. That's what finally broke me. A few weeks later, things escalated. I was on a video call with my team when my internet suddenly dropped. At first, I thought it was just a glitch. Then I saw the Wi-Fi network was gone.
Gone.
I went downstairs. Margaret was in the living room, holding the router. "The internet kept flickering," she said, not looking up from her crossword. I unplugged it. Thought I'd reset it. She didn't plug it back in. Craig came home and said, "She's old. Don't yell at her." That night, I took the router into my office and locked the door. 2 days later, it went missing. She had a spare key to my office. I asked Craig to change the locks. He said no. I changed them myself. That's when it got quiet in the house. Uncomfortably quiet. Meals stopped happening together. Nobody talked. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't scared. But I also felt something new. Like a switch flipped. They wanted to test me? Fine. I was done playing nice. I stopped cooking. I stopped doing laundry that wasn't mine. I stopped speaking unless someone spoke to me first. I worked. I slept. I planned. Then one Saturday morning, I walked into the kitchen and found Margaret at my laptop. Not hers.
Mine.
She looked up like she'd been caught going through a diary. "What are you doing?" I asked calm.
Too calm.
She shrugged. "I was just checking to make sure you weren't hiding anything from Craig. That was it." I grabbed my phone. Opened the photo I'd taken weeks ago, one showing my bruised laptop screen from when she'd slammed it shut earlier. Sent it to myself. Then I gathered all the other photos I had.
Notes she'd left.
Audio recordings I'd started collecting when she thought I wasn't home. I backed it all up. The next day, I sent it to my company's legal team. I told them I was dealing with a hostile home environment and might need to work elsewhere for a while. They said, "Take whatever time and space you need. We'll cover a WeWork membership if needed." I cried again. Not because I was sad, because someone actually listened.
I packed a bag.
Took my work laptop, a few clothes, and left. I didn't tell Craig where I was going. I didn't answer his calls for 2 days. When I did, I said, "Your mother touched my work device. That could have cost me my job. And you let her." He started yelling. I hung up. That was 2 months ago. I have a new apartment now. Small, clean, and mine. Craig still calls. He doesn't yell anymore. He begs.
Says he's sorry.
That he didn't know it would go this far. But the damage is done. And Margaret? She still thinks she's won. But I'm not finished. Not yet. 3 weeks after I moved out, I got a letter. Not an email. A physical letter, delivered to my new place. No return address. Just my name, handwritten on the front. Inside was a folded-up printout of a screenshot of a text conversation. It was between Craig and someone saved in his phone as K, no full name. But I recognized the tone right away. K. So, when is she finally leaving for good? Craig, soon. She's packing up already. She'll crash and burn on her own. K. You could always stay here. Craig. Let me deal with this mess first. She thinks she's in control, lol. My stomach turned. I looked at the date on the message. It was from before I moved out, when Craig was still pretending he wanted to work things out. When he was texting me, miss you, and let's talk. I read the note that came with it. No name. Just one line, scribbled with a shaky pen. You deserve to know who he really is. I stared at it for hours. Was Kay a coworker? A friend? Someone from the past? I didn't know. And right then I didn't care. Because the person who'd sent me that wanted me to see something I hadn't let myself admit before. Craig never had my back. He never chose me. Even after I left, I thought maybe, I don't know. Maybe he'd realize what she'd done. Maybe we could at least talk like adults. I didn't expect love. Just honesty. But this told me everything. I called a lawyer the next day. Asked about divorce, about the house, about asset division. Wisconsin's a marital property state, so everything's split 50-50ths unless there's something shady. I started pulling financial records. And that's when I found it. There was a second savings account I didn't know about. One Craig had opened a year ago, after his promotion. I dug deeper. It was under just his name, but the money going into it? That came from both of us. He'd been slowly skimming off our joint account, a few hundred a month. I printed every statement. I highlighted every transfer. I gave it all to my lawyer. Margaret may have been the face of the cruelty, but Craig was the one with a knife in his back pocket. And then, almost like the universe wanted to make things worse for him, a neighbor reached out. We used to live next to an older couple, Mark and Jean.
Sweet people.
Retired. Mowed our lawn a few times when Craig forgot. Jean called me one night, quiet and hesitant. She said, I don't want to cause problems, but I think you should know your mother-in-law's been telling people around the neighborhood that you're unstable, that you screamed during your interviews, that your new company is investigating you. I didn't say a word. Just let her talk. She said you stole from your last job, that you're on medication for paranoia.
My mouth was dry.
Jean added. I didn't believe her, but others might. I thanked her and hung up. Then I sat down and wrote an email to my HR department. I attached screenshots, dates, names. I asked them to confirm that no such investigation existed. Of course, they replied that it didn't. They even offered to issue a statement on company letterhead if anyone tried to claim otherwise. But I didn't want to stop there. Margaret wanted to play dirty.
Fine.
I started gathering every false statement I could find. I even messaged a couple neighbors and old mutual friends, people she'd spoken to. Some of them were hesitant, but a few admitted she'd said things. One even had a voicemail. I compiled it all, and I filed for a cease and desist. A few days after she was served, Craig called me. Again.
He sounded different this time. Shaky.
You're really going to war over this? I said, you picked your side. Live with it. He said, you don't have to burn it all down. And I said, I'm not burning it down. I'm taking back what's mine. Then I hung up. The next day, Margaret showed up at my office. That's when things really blew up. She came in through the main entrance of the WeWork building. I didn't even see her at first. A receptionist tapped my shoulder. There's an older woman asking for you. Says she's your mother. My stomach dropped. I walked out to the lobby, and there she was, Margaret, wearing one of her fake pearl necklaces and a long black coat, like she was going to church. She looked smaller in person than I remembered, but her eyes? Still sharp, still full of poison. I stayed calm. "I'm at work," I said. "You need to leave." She stepped closer. "You've embarrassed this family enough." I folded my arms. "You showed up to my interview and tried to destroy it. That wasn't embarrassing." "I was protecting my son," she hissed. I laughed. "From what? A woman with a career?" Her face twisted. "You think they respect you? You think they care about you? They respect me more than you or Craig ever did." She stepped closer again, but I didn't move. A security guard noticed. He walked over slowly, keeping a bit of distance. "Ma'am, you need to leave or we'll have to escort you out." Margaret turned her glare toward him. "This is a private matter," I said, loud enough for the whole lobby to hear. "This woman is harassing me. She has no business here." She looked stunned, like she didn't expect me to say it, like she still thought she had control. Security walked her out. The last thing she said as they led her to the door was, "You'll regret doing this to Craig. He's all you had." She was wrong. I didn't have Craig. I had a life I built myself. And I was finally choosing to live it. I finalized the divorce papers a month later. The lawyer proved the hidden account was built from shared funds. I got half, plus my half of the house, which we sold. I used the money to move into a better apartment. One with no shared walls, no creaky doors, no ghosts. Craig tried one last time. He emailed me, said he missed me, said Margaret was in the hospital with stress-related issues, said this wasn't what he wanted. I didn't reply. Because here's the truth. I did make mistakes. I let Margaret walk all over me for too long. I let Craig be passive and weak. I stayed quiet to keep the peace. But when they crossed the line, when they came for my work, my name, my future, I fought back. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I used the tools they never thought I'd have. Proof.
Calm.
Patience. Power. They thought they were clever. They thought I'd crumble. Instead, they gave me a reason to rise. Now, when people ask me what pushed me to change my life, I tell them, my mother-in-law walked into my Zoom interview and told my future boss not to hire me. That was the last time anyone told me who I was allowed to be. And every time I log into work, every time I sign a new contract, every time my team calls me the best boss we've had, I remember they lost. I didn't just survive. I won.